Call to order the regular meeting of the police jury for Thursday, March 10th, 2016. We're going to have the invocation and pledge of allegiance by Mr. Brain. Please stand.
Let us pray. Father God, we just love you today. We give you praise for who you are, and just ask tonight, Father, that you just give us wisdom and discernment on the decisions we make, and Father, that the decisions we make please you. And we just love you and give you praise and ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Place the flag. Repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Miss Kathy.
Yes, sir. Mr. Antoine is out of town this evening. Mr. Barris?
You know, it's a good line.
Mr.
Here.
Barris?
Here.
Mr. Brain?
Here.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Farnham?
Here.
Mr. Guidry?
Here.
Mr. Guillory?
Here.
Mr. Hunter?
Here.
Mr. Latour?
Here.
Ms. Mayo? Here. Vice President McMillan?
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mrs. Trimmy was unable to attend this evening. Mr. White is out of town. And President Landry.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Thank you, Miss Kathy.
You.
Item 4, take appropriate action on applications for liquor and beer permits. Mr. Crane.
Mr. President, we have 3 applications before you tonight, and we recommend they be approved.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Hunter and a second by Mr. Guidry. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 5, consideration of approving payment of all current invoices. I have a motion by Ms. Mayo and a second by Mr. Scott. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 6, consideration of approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the police jury dated February 4,
Move on
2016.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Hunter, a second by Mr. Barris. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 7,
Move on.
consideration of approving the Public Works Committee report dated February 25th, 2016.
That's last.
Mr. Farnham?
Thank you, Mr. President. Item 7, Public Works Committee report dated February 25th, 2016. Item A, presented a retirement certificate to David Marcantel in recognition of 33 years of dedicated service. B, received a report from Tim Connor regarding Calcasieu Parish Transportation Initiative, the purpose of which is to expedite capacity improvements on arterial routes based on results of the Calcasieu Parish 2014 Master Transportation Plan and the 2014 Southwest Louisiana Regional Impact Study. Item C, recommended a resolution be adopted approving an act of donation agreement for the Pinecone Drive Extension Project in Ward 1. Item D, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving an act of sale agreement for the River Road Bridge Replacement Project in Ward 8. Item E, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving a cooperative endeavor agreement for the proposed extension of Carlos Drive between Wright Road and Louisiana Highway 27 in Ward 4. Item F, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving an act of sale agreement for the Parish Barn Road Bridge Replacement Project in Ward 8. Item G, recommended that an ordinance be adopted and/or existing ordinances amended establishing a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on Karen Lynn Street in Ward 4. Item H, recommended that a resolution be adopted accepting Roseville Estates Phase 1 subdivision located off Paul White Road in Ward 1. All of these met with full approval, and recommendation is that they be approved.
Thank you for the report, Mr. Farnham. I think we have a motion already on the floor by Mr. Brame and a second by Vice President McMillan. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 8, consideration of approving the Agenda Committee report dated February 25th, 2016. Got a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Mr. Guidry. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 9, consideration of approving the Budget Committee report dated March 10th, 2016. Mr. Brame.
Thank you, Mr. President. Budget Committee met tonight, and we discussed the following items. Consideration of making recommendation with reference to approving requests from the following entities from the grant funding from Gaming Fund. Ward 4, District 13, City of Sulphur, $2,100 for costs related to the marketing and promotion of the Sulphur Mardi Gras Festival. Ward 6, Gravity Drainage District Number 6 of Wards 5 and 6, $50,000 for costs related to the construction of a metal building, office space, and storage shop on Airpark Road. Consideration of making a recommendation with reference to approving request for grant funding from the Economic Development Parish-wide Needs Allocation of Gaming Fund. Community Center and Playground District Number 2 of Ward 4, $35,000 for costs related to the LHSAA Girls State Fast Pitch 56 Softball Championship. Community Center and Playgrounds District Number 2 of Ward 4, $10,000 for costs related to the LHSAA Boys State Baseball Championship. West Calcasieu Airport Southland Field, $40,000 for matching funds for the purchase of a fuel truck. Calcasieu Parish Voluntary Council on Aging, $100,000 funding assistance for the 2016 Meals on Wheels program. Consideration of making a recommendation with reference to adopting a resolution approving a cooperative endeavor agreement between the police jury and the city of Westlake for grant funding from the gaming fund in the amount of $170,000 for the expansion of the city's gas system into additional areas of Moss Bluff as follows. Parish-wide needs, $85,000. Ward 1, $29,000. Ward 4, $25,000. And Ward 4, District 14, $31,000. All these items were approved by the Budget Committee and I recommend they be approved.
Thank you for your report, Mr. Brame. We have a motion by Mr. Brame, a second by Mr. Gilry. Mr. Scott.
Yeah, Mr. Beam, if we could talk a little bit about the gas line extension. I haven't heard of that since I've been here. Normally we do water and sewer, but now we're in the gas business. I just want a little bit of information on that, if you don't mind.
Sure. That's one that Hal was and Kevin White mainly kind of worked through some things, and we met with them. This is one, you're right, Mr. Scott, there's not a history of that with the gas utility. As an example, though, when you have multiple wards involved, we've kind of wanted to, y'all do have a precedent in the past where you've given matching funds from the Central Parish-wide Needs Account. The Starks Water System and Ward 7 is an example of that. And we felt like this was similar. And Hal can correct me or add on, these areas where they're about to build some subdivisions, they do want the gas, and it's not available by other sources. Westlake is willing to provide it. They just needed some help with it, and it's good for the residents of Moss Bluff for access. It's a good revenue stabilizer for the Westlake gas system. So we felt like it was justified from that, but it is a little different from what you've done before, but we did consider it a utility.
How many people do we think we're helping with this extension?
I think the immediate is 3 different subdivisions, anywhere from, I think, 80 to 100, Hal. And then, of course, after that, they can go further. Now, we did ask, because we said, look, this isn't something every time you want to expand, that we don't know that the police jury would be in a position to have to support that, but Mayor Hardy assured us this is really to help stabilize where they are. And they have done a lot of good things in the past year in all of their areas. And we've, Jerry Milner, I'm proud to say, has been a big part of that. But
So this is actually helping people in the parish, but at the same time, it's helping Westlake. This isn't helping CenterPoint Energy to now, because
No.
if it was about them, I would see them saying, you helped over there, why aren't you helping in South Lake Charles or Carlos? Because obviously gas, it's a convenience. People enjoy it. Especially right now, it's quite cheap. But I just want to make sure that we're not getting into the gas line
no,
business.
sir. No, we would not. That's a great question. We would not view this and going in that direction.
Well, I'm all right with helping the people in Westlake, so thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. McMillan.
And thank you, Mr. Scott. One thing, the city of Westlake owns its own gas system, so it's not owned by an entity like this. Thank you for your questions. Yes, sir.
Is there any other further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 10, consideration of approving amendments to the police jury's board member manual.
Move on 10.
A motion by Mr. McMillan,
Second.
second by Mr. Guidry.
I have a question.
Mr. Hunter.
I'm sorry, I don't know what this is. What is it?
Mr. Bean?
Yes, I think for some of y'all, we mailed them, others we handed to you. A few months ago, y'all approved a revamped board member manual. It was just outdated. We had about 3 different things we inadvertently overlooked. And it's really, I think, an example, and Lisa is here if we need details. Some of the purchasing procedures, but the board member manual is what you have approved that every board member every board member appointed in any board you have gets this.
For special services?
I'm sorry, yes, drainage, fire,
Okay.
water, recreation. Those 4 primarily, and it's just an update.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're good now?
Good.
Okay. Any other questions? Any objections? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 11, consideration of adopting a resolution approving the request of the Board of Commissioners of Waterworks District Number 10 of Ward 7, fixing a per diem to be paid to each commissioner in the amount of $100 for each meeting attended.
Move on 11.
I have a motion by Mr. Barris, second by Mr. Collins. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 12, consideration of adopting a resolution acknowledging that the annual municipal water pollution prevention audit has been conducted for sewer district number 11 of wards 3 and 8 wastewater treatment plant.
So move.
I have a motion by Mr. Guillory.
Second.
Second by Mr. Latour. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, motion carries. I guess that would, I've actually had some people call me and was concerned about the quality of our water here recently with all the Flint, Michigan problems, but I'm sure, well, we can assure them, go ahead, we'll let Mr. Wainwright assure them that they're good.
First, on their water, I will assure them that our water systems that the parish runs are doing quite well. This is a sewer report for the sewer district, and it was a clean bill of health as well. So
And we check the water on a daily basis, correct?
every day,
Yes.
several locations.
Thank you.
I had a question.
Mr. Farnham.
I think you have to mail out reports on the water quality. Do you have to do the same thing with sewer? You have to mail those out to the customers?
No, not necessarily. I think from a reporting standpoint, when you have water that ends up with a test that you don't pass a test on a daily basis, you end up with a reporting mechanism. It's not necessarily the same on the sewer system to sort of handle the 2 different levels. This is an annual audit that you have to do and submit that really documents all your monthly, weekly, daily testing on sewer systems. So, to my knowledge, and I could ask Mr. Freelo to send you the better information when he was here, but that we don't report the same way.
I was just wondering if you had the same requirements on sewer as you did on water, but that's good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farnham. Any other questions? Item 13, receive report and recommendations from staff regarding Evergreen Road. Back to you, Mr. Wainwright.
All right, I'll thank you, Mr. Landry. I'll be brief. In my report, essentially, Evergreen Road has been closed under a temporary agreement now for several months, and it has come time to review that agreement based on what the first estimates were. And so we have been going through a process of reviewing the situation, reviewing the traffic, reviewing the conditions and the ongoing construction, and entertaining the different options that we might have. At the end of the day, though, we're making based on public safety and all things that are going on out there, the fact that it is in the middle of 3 major construction sites, the epicenter, if you would, of a tremendous amount of construction. Its current way that it's functioning allows for the rest of the road system around that area to actually be improved. It keeps traffic off of the rest of the things. So we're recommending that we keep the agreement continuing with keeping the road under a temporary closure indefinitely. Probably be the most accurate way to put it, in that the foreseeable future from a construction standpoint, it really would just soon keep it like it is. We do have a long-range plan in place, that is the 108 extension. We are very understanding, and we do realize the inconvenience for some of the citizens that live near there. We feel like in the overall considerations for safety and what's going on with that entire site, that the best solution at this point, or best path forward at this point, is to keep it under its current agreement of temporarily closed. And with that, I'll answer any questions if you need be.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wainwright. Mr. McMillan.
Thank you, Mr. Wainwright. We have had a number of meetings on this behalf, and it's major consensus in the room. 100% of the people said, hey, it's just not safe. We don't want to get anybody hurt. It's to keep this temporary closure in effect would be the right thing to do. So we're going to leave it as is right now. We're going to move forward. One of the positive things I want to just kind of out of this is getting Coach Williams Road done as quickly as possible. Tim is working with me and Fistemaker to make sure that every day we have engineers working on the Coach Williams extension, Highway 108 extension. I was in a meeting the other day and been reassured that this is being done. We've got timelines, updates, and we're moving forward as quickly as possible. We actually are a little bit ahead of schedule right now. I don't want to jinx us in any way, but I can tell you this is going to be a front burner item with me until we turn the first shovel to start the road under construction, until we cut the ribbon on it. I'm going to be right there pushing every moment that we can, and I'm there. That was in the meeting the other day to let the engineers know that whatever we could do, whatever I could do as a police jury, whatever we could do as a jury to help expedite anything that we could, we would be there to help it. If we needed to get help with the Corps of Engineers, we could get with our federal delegation and do whatever we could do to help expedite the extension of Coach Williams Road. We understand how important that is and what a tremendous road it'll be once it gets built, because it'll just be a straight shot from Houston River Road right to the interstate. So I can assure you Tim's working with me hand in hand to make this happen as quickly as possible on behalf of the parish. By the way, this is a parish road. This is not a Sasol road. This is a parish road. I want to reiterate that fact, that we're in control of this road, and our parish folks are doing everything to get it done as quick as they can. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Mr. Scott?
I guess you didn't mention a time frame. That's the jinxing part. But, I mean, we are moving somewhat aggressive. I mean, I know it's been a little while. It's a big road with some big issues. So, I mean, 2018, we're hoping to be driving on it. 2017. I mean, I didn't even pin you to a month, just a year. So, I mean, just
anticipated schedule, Mr. Scott, is we would have the core permit by the end of the year and be able to go out for bid in the beginning of 2017.
maybe 2018-ish be driving.
Correct. Yeah, the engineering plan should be completed in July.
All right, thank you. One of the main issues with Evergreen Road that we heard from the people that live in that area was due to emergencies and stuff. Have we had any issues with any kind of emergencies that we know of with that road being closed, just to make sure we've covered all that?
Well, to my knowledge, we haven't, but the agreement that we have does allow for emergency access and crossing if necessary. There's gate guards there that are maintain that road pretty much 24/7. So it could happen if it was necessary for an emergency, and that remains in place.
So that has been continued.
But to my knowledge, I don't know that it's actually been something that's happened, but we still have that in this agreement where we can, if it comes to that, they surely have access. Emergency vehicles have access.
All right, and the last thing somebody asked me about the other day, since we're on this, is with Sasol, of course, we've all seen the news slowing down a little bit. I was questioned as far as our agreements with Sasol. Our agreements with them are still, I mean, nothing's slowing down on what they promised us, the things they're gonna be doing, whether it's in Westlake or for the parish. I mean, this road to be one of those things. So, Mr. Crane or whoever wants to speak to that.
There's nothing that affects the developer's agreement in this particular case.
Okay.
So,
What about, that particular, I mean, anything else we ought to be worried about, or no, pretty much it's still
they're I
business
mean,
as
the
usual?
developer's agreement's been followed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Good questions.
Move to receive report.
Got a motion to receive report from Mr. McMillan, second by Mr. Brame. Any further discussion, any objections? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 14, consideration of approving the recommendations of the Director of the Division of Planning and Development in reference to the adjudicated property sale conducted on February 23rd, 2016.
14, all bullets.
A, 206 Jelpy Drive, Lake Charles, Kenneth Marks for $3,800. B, the 2500 block of Madison Street was deferred. C, 2025 Fifth Street in Lake Charles, have a James McNeil for $4,200. D, the 2500 block of Saunier Street in Lake Charles, Corey Thomas for $1,500. E, 4012 Auburn Street in Lake Charles, Garland Wright for $300. F, 4012 Auburn Street, again, I guess the property must be in two pieces, I'm assuming. Garland Wright for $9,000. G, 400 block of Fournette Street in Lake Charles, Scott Montgomery for $6,900. 302 Ann Street in Lake Charles, Investment Dynamics for $22,000. 222 North Bilbo Street in Lake Charles, Corey Thomas for $1,200. 1400 East Town Drive in Iowa, Derek Robertson for $25,000. K is 100 block of South Charlotte Drive in Lake Charles, Lee J. Marsalis for $12,600. L, 5800 block of Landry Road in Lake Charles, Leon Berard Jr. for $100. M, north of 1200 U Wynn Road in Lake Charles or Moss Bluff, Lee J. Marsalis for $8,800. N, the 100 block of Hereford Drive in Lake Charles, Scott Montgomery for $1,100. I had a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Mr. Guidry. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 15, there's no action necessary. It's been withdrawn. Item 16, consideration of authorizing the parish
Move on
purchasing agent
16.
to advertise for bids for aerial mosquito control emergency services. I have a motion by Mr. Hunter and a second by Mr. Guidry. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 17,
Move on
take
17.
appropriate action on bids received by the parish purchasing agent for the following. A, Goche Road, Lake Charles Regional Airport Sewer Transport System Phase 1 project.
All bullets.
Parish engineer recommends that the low bid in the amount of $4,849,675 of Don M. Barron Contractors Incorporated be accepted. B is for crushed stone, ready mix, concrete, hot mix, and weed control chemicals. C, vehicles for use by the Office of Juvenile Justice, Communications and Media Department, and Human Services Department. D, Lake Charles Health Unit Access Control and Security Upgrades Project. On that one, the project architect recommends that the low bid in the amount of $93,790 from John D. Myers and Associates be accepted. E, Calcasieu Parish Sheriff's Office Facilities Automatic Transfer Switch Upgrades Project. The project architect recommends that the bid in the amount of $159,000 from Seth Priola Construction be accepted. Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. President. With regards to A, is that the project that we had some matching state funds on?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yes.
I'm glad to see that move forward. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Scott.
Yeah, to follow up on A, Mr. Connor, when do you think they're gonna break ground on this now? Just curious, and then I have one other follow-up question.
Yeah.
18-ish.
We expect probably to start construction on that by June 1st.
By June 1st, that'll be great. Now, the second, I consider that to be a very good number, considering this looked like it was gonna blow up the total phase 1 and 2 into 15 million, but this has the actual plant in it already, correct?
Correct, there's a temporary
So,
plant.
The temporary plant, which inflated, so are we hoping to get phase 2 bid while this is under construction? Because it seems like the guy mobilizing, if he's already there, would probably do, whether it's him or somebody else that wants a job, mobilization takes a lot of money. And so if we can get this thing bid while somebody's already working, are we gonna make that deadline, you think, or year and a year of construction?
I would say it's a possibility.
That's it.
We still have some right-of-way,
I got you.
quite a bit to acquire, so if that goes well, I would say it's a possibility.
So we can try to see if there's anything we can do to save money. I just see saving money and mobilization if we can get this thing bid while they're working. I mean, in my little thoughts.
I'm all for saving money.
I am too, especially tax dollars.
Correct.
State needs the money, see if we can loan it to them. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Brame.
On E and D, I noticed those are all local contractors, but on A, how many of these are local? One, Don Barron, or where are they from?
Farmerville, which is near Ruston.
Okay, are any of the rest of these, any of these local?
Blake D. Hines is local.
Okay, I was just
And
curious.
yeah, MPV would be local also.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Futch is, aren't they out of Eunice? I think they're nearby.
That's it.
That's all. Thank you, Mr. Brame. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Mr. Farnum. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 18, take appropriate action on the terms of the following members of various boards and districts.
Second.
A, Ms. Vicky Gruca, Recreation District Number 1 of Ward 8. Mr. Latour wanted to recommend
Move to
that
appoint Brandon
Mr.
James.
Brandon James
Second.
Perkins. Got a motion by Mr. Latour, second by Mr. Hunter. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. B, Ms. Joyce
Defer
Doucette,
for 30 days.
Recreation District Number 1 of Ward 8. We have a motion by Mr. Latour to defer for 30 days and a second by Mr. Hunter. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, motion carries. C, Mr. Dale Hernandez, Ward 4 Fire Protection District Number
Move to
2.
reappoint.
Second.
Mr. Barris, that's your motion? To reappoint Mr. Hernandez. Got a second by Mr. Guidry.
I'm more than happy to give it to Mr. Barris if you would like it.
I think I just did, didn't I?
Oh, that's right.
Due to my bad hearing, because I thought that's who made the motion.
That's fine, Mr. President.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Let's see. D, Mr. John Charles Guidry, Ward 4 Fire Protection District
reappoint.
Number
Second.
2. Have a motion by Mr. Barris to reappoint and a second by Mr. Farnum. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, motion carries. E, Miss Mary Gallion on the MCAL Board of Directors. Have a motion by Ms. Mayo to defer for 30 days and a second by Mr. Gilry. Any discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 19, consideration of adopting a resolution requesting that the governor
Move on
reappoint
19.
Ms. Kay Barnett, Mr. Mike Deaver, Mr. David Minton to the Chenier Plain Coastal Restoration and Protection Authority for Calcasieu, Cameron, and Vermilion parishes, and further submitting the additional names of Mr. Curtis Dahl, Mr. Renee Escaroot, and Mr. Rob McCorkadale. I had a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Ms. Mayo. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Seeing none, motion carries. Item 20, consideration of adopting a resolution of condolences to be forwarded to the family of the late Dalton Welch McMillan. I have a motion by Mr. Hunter and a second by Mr. Brain. Any discussion?
I'll say something.
Mr. McMillan.
Oh. Take just a moment, compose myself.
All the time you need.
Oh, I just want to say I had a wonderful mama, 93 great years, and she wouldn't want me to choke up when I'm talking about her because she was a lot of fun. She was a comforter, a good listener, and their obituary said a world-class back scratcher. I can tell you, nothing like being in your mom's arms, and she'll be missed. But she had a great life, and she left a legacy of kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, and I'm just very proud to be called her son. Thank y'all.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good job, Mick.
All right, we had a motion and a second. Item 20 carries. 21, there are no board appointments, so we have nothing to do there. I'm sorry, we're going to receive a flooding report from Mr. Grimion instead. Mr. Grimion, you would please state your name and position with the parish.
Thank you, Mayor.
Dick Grimion, Director of Calcasieu Parish Office, Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. Two issues that propped up just today. We're going to have some flooding issues on the Calcasieu River over the next couple of days. I'll start with that first. We're going to have a moderate flood on the Calcasieu River. It's going to crest at 7.5 feet at Old Town Bay on Friday. That'll mean Goss Ferry Road, some other roads out there will have some water over them. I think the people who live there know what that means. 8 feet at Sam Houston Jones State Park, which means South Perkins Ferry Road, Cypress Lake Road in the Moss Bluff area. And then 5.9 feet at the Saltwater Barrier, which means River Road up here, North Lake Charles will probably have some water on it. The other issue, which is really a lot more serious, is we're going to have a flood of record on the Sabine River. By Monday, the Sabine River will be over major flood stage at Deweyville, which is right near Starks. The record flood prior to this event was 29.2 feet in 1989. This is going to be 34.4 feet, so this will be 5 feet higher than anyone has seen in that area. And of course, from Calcasieu Parish is from a little bit north of Alligator Park Road all the way down to the Burnout Bridge, Old Highway 90. We're not sure what that's going to mean. We have a meeting with all of the public safety agencies from that area in the morning. We want to hear about what their thoughts are on where the inundation is going to be, but I can tell you roughly we're probably looking at least everything west of Highway 109 to the river is probably going to have some sort of water on it. The river is going to come up, it's going to stay up. Toledo Bend is at a record high. They're currently releasing 206,000 cubic feet per second. All of the gates are open at the dam, which is a rare occurrence. So that was my short report. We're going to have to tell Brian tomorrow we'll probably do an emergency declaration because this is likely going to cause some damage to Alligator Park, and many of the parish roads in that area will have some washout damage to them. So we'll be asking Mr. Landry to sign that declaration tomorrow.
Thank you, Dick. I think we had some discussion. Or any questions from the jurors? Mr. Brain?
Will it affect I-10 when you get toward before the bridge?
This should not affect I-10. It shouldn't affect I-10 because by the time it gets a little further south, it's not going to be quite as high. The gauge at Orange is predicted to be at 6 feet. Now, it's been higher than that in Orange, but only for hurricanes. The last time it was higher than that was Hurricane Ike. So 6 feet is rather high at that south end of the Sabine River there, but I don't think it'll endanger the interstate. Now, one thing I forgot to say is Highway 190 is closed right now due to flooding on the Texas side of the river. But as the river comes up, it's likely that that's going to stay closed for a while, and it possibly could even impact Highway 12.
I'm sorry, Mr. Barris?
Thank you. Mr. Grimion, Nibbles Bluff area, or when you say we're going to do a call an emergency, are they going to have an evacuation type situation, or just kind of a overall be aware?
I'll be able to answer that for you tomorrow. There's obviously going to be some people that are going to have to evacuate from here because, like I said, it's going to be 5 feet higher than they've seen it before, and it may be a little bit unknown on what the effect is going to be. So, yeah, we're going to probably make some recommendations along those lines.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Barris. Mr. Scott?
Real quick, just for, made me curious, didn't we approve some stuff gonna happen at Alligator Park pretty soon? How is that gonna affect, are we under contract already on that? Because that could totally change, or, I'm just curious. I don't know if you gotta really answer it, it's just,
I think we'll come back to that in
Yeah, you don't
just
have
a
to
second
answer,
while
just-
while he's up here. Mr. Farnum.
Thank you. I know Toledo Bend Reservoir is kind of in a little bit of a state of emergency right now. I saw some video from the dam today, and if you've ever spent any time up there, the amount of water that's flowing through the gates is phenomenal. And it's pretty scary what it looks like, because normally when you're standing on that dam, looking down, it's 50, 60 feet down to the water, and right now it looks to be about 10 feet down to the water. And the water, it's in the millions of gallons per minute that are flowing out of that thing. How long is it anticipated that the crest will be seen down at Deweyville?
Right now, they're thinking probably at least a week.
It's basically
Once it comes up, it's not going to go
going
down.
down the river. That's what it amounts to.
At Niblets Bluff Park, I got a report today that the water was on to the top of the boat ramp there. So it's coming up very quickly. And that, we're gonna be doing some telephone ring downs and some other public service announcements over the next couple of days to warn people that that's coming.
Fast.
Right.
It's going to greatly affect a lot of people's lives, so our prayers will be with those folks during this time of need.
Thank you,
Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Farnum. Is there any further discussion on that item? Thank you for your report, Mr. Grimion. Before we adjourn, Mr. Gilry has asked for a personal point of privilege, and we're going to go ahead and give it to him.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just want to say congratulations to St. Louis for making it as far as they did in basketball. I want to say congratulations to Washington Minute. Also, congratulations to staff for as much as they are doing out there at Burton Coliseum, Mr. Boland and everybody. I want to thank you all. Great job.
Mr. Boland?
Thank you.
No, it's been a great attendance, and it kind of related to the flooding issues up north. Several of the teams that are playing still, Anacoco, for one, they called for an evacuation, and I believe they play tomorrow night. And Natchitoches Central has actually had some issues getting here also, and they play Saturday night. So prayers with those teams and their families as they come down to Lake Charles and play a little basketball. So.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Boland.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Move to adjourn.
Need a motion to
Second.
adjourn?
Second.
We are adjourned.
Go with it.
Yeah.